I started a piece, a series on the Jewish Values Online website. Okay, it's called JewishValuesOnline.com, whatever, it's a website, and it presents the different opinions of the various denominations of Judaism and so forth and so forth. But I, as an Orthodox rabbi, am presenting a series in their blog. And the series that I'm doing is called The Distinctiveness of Judaism. I want to state an example of what's distinct about Judaism. It's what makes Judaism different. Okay? It's not we're all into the same. And this especially is in terms of, let's say, the idea of Judeo-Christian values, where, you know, everyone uses the term Judeo-Christian like we all share the same values. And the fact is that the term is really a misnomer. There's a lot of cases where Judaism does not share the same values as Western Europe, as Western society. It does not share the same values as Christianity. Very powerfully, that Judaism has its own distinct way of looking at things.
Example, yeah.
So, well, that's what? No, what were you going to say? What?
There are many examples.
Yes, there's many. Okay, but the fact is I'm not talking just in terms of ritual, what I call ritual distinctions. We put on film, they don't put on film. I'm talking even in terms of ethics.
Right.
That there are certain ideas that we have ethical responses different than the world's ethical responses.
Value of human life is huge.
Pardon?
Our value of human life is huge.
Yeah, but the fact is that it's not just in the value of human life. It's in the
concept of war.
You have to look at a lot of different examples, and the fact is that it's not just you can't really just look in terms of the value of human life.
Our outlook of war is different than probably every other culture.
Well, in certain ways, yes, we don't really value war, but the fact is there are people who are pacifists and so forth.
But it's not passivity. That's the thing. We're not passive, but we don't favor our war. The war isn't.
No, let me. That's true, because that is where you have this sort of like definition of military men and so forth. But the distinctions are a little bit more subtle in certain ways. Like, for example, you know that classic line, charity begins at home, right? Halakhically, it actually is very true.
Yes.
That your first responsibility in tzedakah is to family and friends. Now, Christianity argued that takes away from the charitable aspect of what you're doing, because charity is an aspect of selflessness, in the sense that you basically look at an idea of I'm giving to another, so I negate myself to give to another. So we were looking at this before when we were looking at I forget what it was. We were looking at this whole series before, where I said to you that there was a concept of tzedakah that really is an extension of self, that you help the other because you recognize that you really are connected to the other. And that connection begins with your family. So therefore, it's not an aspect of I deny myself because of the other. It's because I recognize that the other is part of me, and therefore it is an aspect of why I want to connect with them. Now this gets into the whole concept of, let's say, sexuality. In terms of Christianity, in classic, let's say, Catholicism and so forth and so forth, the problem with sexual love is that the participants had personal pleasure through sexual love. Therefore, it was almost like you're being satisfied, you're getting something out of it. And from a halachic perspective, that's expected from love, in the sense that love is just an extension of self. It connects with the other, and you're supposed to have a feeling of some type of connection to the other, some type of benefit from the other. So this is an example of a attitude about what love is about and so forth. The fact is that's an example, but these are examples and so forth and so forth. So, but in this series, the way I'm going to start off my discussion, I open up with an introduction saying yes, Judaism thinks differently, but the way I want to approach it is by looking at the story of Sdom. Okay?
Sdom?
Sdom.
Sdom.
Sdom, the city of Sdom. Right? Now, if you talk about people in terms of the city of Sdom, what was the real evil of the city of Sdom? So the real city, the whole story. So what we've learned from it is the English word sodomy. They perceive the city of Sdom to be a story that what's the real evil? Homosexual lust. The people of Sdom, right, wanted the Malachim, the angels, who they thought were simply men, and they wanted to have their wherewithal with these men. And Lot says to him, listen, don't take the men, they're guests in my house. Take my daughters, they're my young daughters, even virgins, take them. And the people says, no, we want the men. So it seems to be that the story of Sdom is about a wild mob just motivated by homosexual lust, and that was a great evil, and it was disgusting, and they were just a mob, and they were just driven by their drives and so forth, and that's why they were totally evil and so forth.
Wasn't there also an aspect of them not wanting to help one another?
But we'll look at the text.
But that was society then.
So the fact of the matter is you're already asking Jewish questions. Okay, the fact of the matter is that if you look at the statement, at the idea, the development of the idea in Jewish thought is the concept of Midat Sdom. What's Midat Sdom? The Midah of Sdom. And the fact is the Midah of Sdom, the
gated
first
community.
What?
It was a gated community.
It was a what?
Gated community.
So it seems to be something. So Midat Sdom, the Mishnah says, Mishnah Avot says, one place we find this term Midat Sdom is found in the Mishnah is in Pirkei Avos. Okay, in the 5th chapter of Pirkei Avos, the Mishnah Yud Gimel, I think. And in that, it's right. And what it is that it says there are 5 Arba Midos B'Adam. There's 4 types of people. One of them are the people who says what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. And then the Mishnah goes on and says Zuhi Midas Beinanis. That's the average person's thing. V'yesh Omrim Zuhi Midas Sdom. And some people say it's Midas Sdom. So what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. That's Midas Sdom. Now you look about that, or otherwise it's just the average person. You look at it and say, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours.
Well, I think it depends on, if you're in a general society, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Yeah, if people need help, then then it becomes Midas Sdom.
So what's being said here? So the truth of the matter is, it opens up a whole different vista. The point is, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. If stated in the extreme, the person is basically saying, like, I'm a rock. Like that song, I'm a rock, but not like that song. But the fact is like, I don't bug you, you don't bug me. I don't steal from you, right? But don't ask anything from me. So the idea of being is almost like, and that's perceived by many people to be an okay moral position. Listen, I don't take from you, I don't bug you, right? You don't bug me.
Yeah, but many people are in a place where you don't really need anything from your neighbor.
So the point is that perception of what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, right, is being understood to be the root that it could possibly lead to Midat Sdom. Because the point is you basically don't understand you have a responsibility to others. You are connected to others. It's not just about you. Yeah, it's true, chayecha kodem, your life comes first. It's true you have some responsibilities to yourself and so forth and so forth. But then part of your very nature has to be that I take care of others. If I'm okay, that's not enough for me to say I'm okay. Okay? It has to be, now I want to make sure you're okay. It's not I'm okay and and I don't care about you. It's I'm okay and I have to care about you. That's why the Gemara says, what's Midas Sdom? It says the concept of the Gemara says Kaifin al Midas Sdom. Right? You can actually punish someone. You can actually force someone to, if they're displaying the attitude of Sdom. what's the case? Midat Sdom. So the case is like this. Let's say someone goes up to your property in the Muskoka in November. No one is on your property in November. Okay? That person squats on your property till February. Okay? Is totally careful and doesn't do any damage to your property. Okay? Stay there from November till February. Without any consequences to your property. Not only that, you weren't using that property. Okay? You weren't even going to rent it out to someone. It just sat there. So you had no use for that property. Then finally in February you find out that he was squatting on your property. So you go over and give him a bill and say, it's my property, you have no right to be there, pay up. Okay? In the Jewish court you won't get too far. Because that case is called Zenena V'Zelo Chaser. Okay, the Gemara talk about this. What does it mean, Zenena V'Zelo Chaser? This person benefited, but this person didn't lose anything. Even in terms of opportunity cost, he was going to rent it out anyways. Hey, if you were trying to have a rental property and a guy was squatting there but you were trying to rent it out, then there is a chaser. But you weren't going to use this property at all. Okay, it was basically just there, but it was your property. It was your property. Okay, okay. In Jewish law, in Jewish law, okay, Midat Sdom. The fact of the matter is you force someone not to accept any money. The fact of the matter is that you're not. Is that in the case of Zenen V'Zelo Chaser, this other person benefits, but you don't lose anything, right? You don't have a right to collect anything. Okay, and there are even some portion will say that you could even be forced to let the person stay on the property. Okay, that you can be forced. That if you have a piece of property that you're not using and someone else can benefit at it without any cost to you whatsoever, you can be forced to let the other person use that property.
You can't do that nowadays.
The fact of the matter is that you're talking in terms of values.
Well, you can't do that nowadays.
Hydro and okay, that's a question of whether you can get to the case of Zelo Chaser. Okay. The point is that that's the situation. And the fact is that that's a remarkable concept.
Right.
And that's considered to be the person who will want to get paid, right? Even though he doesn't lose anything, and the other person benefit, that's considered to be Midat Sdom. Now, the truth is what does that have to do with Midat Sdom? Look at this story. How did you get this idea from Midat Sdom? And on a certain level, you can sit there and say, but this is his property. It's his property. The fact of the matter is that this really shows the Jewish way of looking at things. We don't read the Bible as a fundamentalist. To us, the Chumash has to be read within the context, and that context is Torah Sheba'al Peh. And Torah Sheba'al Peh is a broader understanding of ideas and a broader realm of questions. So when you read a story in the Chumash, if you're not asking questions, you're going to miss the whole point of the story.
Right.
You know where we learned that from? We learned it from Avraham Avinu. Okay? So I forget who says this, but someone pointed out that there's a medrash that says that the minute the story of the Akedah was over, Avram said, I had a problem the whole time. Right? Okay, you said that I'll have that my zera will come from Yitzchak, that my progeny will come from Yitzchak, and now you're telling me to kill him before he has kids. So I had a problem, right? And so the fact is, the Kodesh Baruch Hu said, I never told you to kill him. I told you to lay a sham Allah. I told him to put him on the mizbeach. Once you put him on the mizbeach, you had no obligation to kill him. In other words, there was a Kodesh Baruch Hu was saying, be careful about my language. Okay, my language was not to sacrifice him. My language was to place him on the mizbeach. Once he was placed in the mizbeach, it fulfills your obligation. But I never told you to bring him as a korban. That's what the Medrash seems to say. So the truth of the matter is, there's someone, I forget who it was, but a big Akhron says, from here we learn the halachic process. If you're not asking questions, you're not going to get the halacha correctly. That's basically what Judaism says. If you read a pasuk and you think you're going to read it fundamentally without asking questions, you're going to miss the point. That's why you take the famous case of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It can't possibly be an eye for an eye, for a tooth for a tooth. The Gemara says why? Because two eyes aren't equal, and two teeth aren't equal, right? So this person's eye is blue, this person's eye is brown, this person's eye is bigger than this person's eye. Therefore, it can't mean equal for equal, because it can't mean that. Therefore, it must be monetary compensation, because you can't say it means absolute equality. You lost an eye, you're going to get an eye, because no two eyes are the same. One has 20/20 vision, one has 20/25 vision. They're not the same. Now, that comes about from the fact you asked a question. That's the Jewish approach. So the Jewish approach basically says you're not going to get what God means unless you're asking questions. From Sdom, you guys already asked the first question. What kind of society can run just based upon a bunch of guys just doing whatever they want? Sdom was a society. Not only that, who lived in that society? Lot. Now, Lot is an interesting figure in Jewish history. What was the nature of Lot and so forth and so forth, but he still was Avram's nephew. And Avram still had a relationship with him. And he did have some values that we see from the way he dealt with Avram. Now, there's a lot of issues on Lot, a lot of questions on Lot, but the fact of the matter is he did have a perception of emulating Avram. He took the angels in to emulate Avram. So how could Lot live in that society? How could he live in that society? So somehow, so if you look in terms of Jewish sources, begin to understand that Lot was that Sdom was actually a well-ran society based upon the principle that nothing for nothing. Okay, you don't give anything you don't give something to another person for nothing. Everyone has to work, and they've said that on values. If you give people free things, they'll become freeloaders, right? People have to work, right? And otherwise, what you're going to do is encourage vagrancy, encourage takers. So Sdom was a very well-ran society. It wasn't a bunch of crazy guys. It was a very well-ran society. And what was the point of that society? Is principles. Everyone's got to work. Everyone's got to do their part, and society runs well. And the guy, what?
Was it like the ideal communism?
That's an interesting perspective, but actually they allowed for private property. They allowed for it wasn't ideal communism in the sense it wasn't communal. It was private property and so forth and so forth. You earned more, you made more, that's okay. But the fact is you don't get anything for nothing. And the fact is that if you're someone who can't earn things, then we don't want to encourage people to be layabouts, and it's not good for them. It's not good for our society. It's wrong. We don't want freeloaders. We want people to work with us.
As a society, that seems like a good model.
That was the whole point. Sdom did have some aspect of value, but they misapplied their values. See, the truth is that fulfills another aspect of Jewish thought. In Judaism, what's really a bad thing in Judaism? If you look at it, everything has its place. Every value, every drive has its place in Judaism. There's a time for this and there's a time for that, right? There's even even in terms of we're talking now about Sinas Chinam, right? We're not supposed to in terms of the 3 weeks and Tisha B'Av, the great evil of Sinas Chinam. But at the same point in time, right? There are certain times that you should have developed an emotion of Sina. You're supposed to hate people who are deserving of hatred. Now, that's not very many people, but okay, there's a fact of knowing where everything is find its place. There's a time where every drive and every emotion has its place. There's a place for this, there's a place for that, there's a place for this, place for that. What leads to evil? What's really evil? When you overextend a value. Okay, let's take a positive value. Spirituality. You want to have a feeling of closeness to God. what happens if you're overtaken with this drive for a feeling of closeness to God? What's the potential negativity that can come out?
Nadav and Avigo.
Pardon?
Nadav and Avigo.
Well, Nadav and Avigo that's a different problem.
So close to God, he understands.
That's a big problem. That's a big problem. But the fact of the matter is that's a big problem. But what can come out is avodah zarah. You're so overtaken by your drive for spirituality that you don't abide by the rules. You want that feeling, right? Okay. The fact is that you want this drive, but you don't. But every drive has to have its proper place, and so forth and so forth. So the fact is that you're right. There is a place to have a sense of order. A sense of we have a concept in halacha, for example, it's a pasuk in Mishlei, Chesone Matanos Hashem. Sone Matanos Yichya. Sorry, Sone Matanos Yichya. The person, thank you very much. The person who hates gifts lives. There's a concept of not being a taker. There's a concept you should not like gifts.
But
now,
if someone gives you a gift, you don't say
right, exactly, because there's actually a concept that if you that not taking a gift when it's appropriate is really improper. Also, you have to know how to balance it out. When to take a gift, when not to take a gift, and so forth. So the fact is in Sdom you have to balance it out. So Sdom didn't balance it out. Sdom applied this value to the extreme, and what became of it? So that's the whole story of how we understand the story of Sdom. What happened? Lot took in some strangers. He gave them lodging for nothing. The people of Sdom said, hey, wait a second. You're giving something for nothing. You're allowing these people to be freeloaders. You're allowing these people to be takers. And what happens is that you're encouraging this negative behavior. Okay? So Lot says, they don't have any money. They don't have any money, they have no way of paying, and so forth. That's where the people of Sdom said, wait a second. Yes, they do have something. Right? They have their bodies. So we can use them let's just use them. And it wasn't even motivated by homosexuality. That's why Lot can sit there and say, take my daughters. Okay? And the men and the people of Sdom, being the principled individuals they were, this isn't about sex, this isn't about pleasure, this is about a principle. Of course we'd be more interested in having relations with your daughters, but this isn't what it's about. It's about the principle that we have to be able to, these people have to pay for their food, and therefore the way they can pay was with their bodies, so we're going to use their bodies. And that was the point. They were so, and that's why they were so evil. There were a lot of people around that time who were basically pagans, basically promiscuous. They talk about Mitzrayim, they talk about Canaan. We talk about Toivus Eretz Mitzrayim, the evil of Egypt. We talk about the ways of Canaan. If you want lasciviousness, if you want paganism, they were all over. Why was Sdom so evil in the eyes of God? Because they had order. They had a principle. A principle that was totally that basically was we're right. This is wrong. That's it. Once you basically can't see and you take this kind of idea where it has a place, but you overextend it to make it the only value, then basically there's no way of talking to you. I can't even get you. I can't even get you to do tshuva.
Was it your shir where they said people, or I can't remember which shir was that, where they were saying people who are more into animals than human rights you should be wary of?
You know, they bring the famous thing where the Nazis were nice to animals.
But it's historically been that way. It's not just now too.
But the fact is that's because that leads to other things and so forth. The fact of the matter is a greater evil. What people don't recognize is that evil is really when you take a drive to the extreme.
Yeah.
And you have to be very careful about that. Every drive has to be balanced. Okay? And you started this off with, and I got off on this from from what you were talking about in terms of halachic decision. I actually, we were talking about in terms of halachic decision making. The fact of the matter is that people become so adamant about one side of the story. They become so adamant about one value as if it's the only value, and they don't recognize that there are myriads of values going around in the world. And what the Rambam says about the Midah HaBedini, what the Rambam says about the Shul HaZahav, the golden path, he's not just, he's talking about a necessary reality of understanding life. Any drive, if applied in the extreme, as if it is the only value, is incorrect. Every value has to be balanced. Now, in that balance, you may have to make decisions and you begin to understand, listen, this is what I have to do, because sometimes in our world of black and white, we can't always do the nice simple balance. Like sometimes we can sort of find the pshara. Sometimes we can't find that pshara, so it's got to be A or B. Okay? But you have to understand that A or B is going to have a certain consequence. That comes with the Torah. But in this world, in this olam hazeh, in this physical world, you can't always find the intermediary path. So the point is that that's it. Like you have it's like there's a kid in a school, and you don't know what to do with him, and should you expel him or not expel him? If you expel him, it's not good for him. On the other hand, if he's around, he's a bad influence on other kids. But the point is that if he's not in school, he's not going to get the good influence from the school. On the other hand, how do you do this? So you have to make a decision and say, listen, keep him in school, and we're going to have to deal with the fact that we try to limit his negative influence on others. Or you sit there and say, listen, we have to basically expel him and recognize that we're going to have to deal with the negative consequences of him not having the positive influences of others. But the point is, and these are real questions that educators have to sometimes ask. And the point is that you understand that there's no real right, there's no perfect answer. It's not, there's always consequences, and those are the tough decisions, and that's what Judaism's about. Judaism is about understanding it and then dealing with it and working it through. And the fact is that a lot of times people don't recognize that. And that's something that always hits me. I use that one example at school, but it's one example that always hits me in terms of halacha. A lot of people don't recognize that in halachic decision making, the psak halacha is the definition of what you're going to do. This is what you have to do. But if you think that what you're going to do is 100% going to have good consequences and no negative consequences, the way certain people present halacha, it's the perfect thing to do and has no negative consequences, only positive consequences, you're missing the point. Halacha is a statement of what you have to do. It's a statement of what is necessary to be done. However, you have to recognize that it doesn't always mean that it's 100% has positive consequences, and that it's and that or that there are no negative consequences, and you deal with it. And that's one of the reasons where I believe why you see so much challenges in halacha, because the reason you have such variant opinions in halacha and so forth and so forth is that this recognition of the balancing of ideas and so forth and so forth is part of the halachic process. Now, we argue things out, we use arguments, the halachic arguments. We don't argue halacha based upon the moral consequences. You don't sit there and argue that this is kosher because the person who owns this is poor, and if you say it's not kosher, the person's not going to have any food. That's not a halachic argument. But the recognition that, if I say that this person's not going to have any food, is not kosher, the person will be out without a chicken for Shabbos. That is a consideration that motivates poskim to try and find halachic arguments. And if they're not able to, they'll say, "Lo zachiti." I've heard a poskim when a person's asked a shaila and the person says, I can't find a heter. They understand that there's a consequence. The consequence is negative. Of course, you have to follow the halacha, but I recognize the negative consequence. The halacha is not 100%. I shouldn't say it's 100% ideal of what should be done, but it does not represent the
best part of life all the time,
or the a 100% positive ideal. It deals with reality. It tells you the decision has to be rendered given this reality, with the recognition that there are positive consequences, negative consequences. The positive consequences obviously outweigh the negative ones because that is the halacha, but be sensitive to the negative consequences and understand that. And with that understanding, you begin to understand the depth of the halachic process. And the fact that that's one of the reasons that a small shift in the facts may lead to a very different conclusion. There's so many cases of this. I once had a situation, I wrote an article. I don't think the article's up on our website. It's called Heter. And I wrote the article in response to a woman who was divorced and asked a shaila if she could not cover her hair because she was divorced and she didn't want to cover her hair anymore because it affected shidduchim and also because of her own emotional and psychological feelings about the divorce and so forth and so forth. So she spoke to me about it and so forth and so forth. I didn't paskin the shaila, but I said I gave her the fact that there's different studim and you can look it over and check it out, and you might find a major posek who will tell you it's okay not to cover your hair even though you're divorced. Okay? And the truth of the matter is a major posek in New York paskin that she didn't have to cover her hair. Okay? Which basically she started the path because of our original discussion. She said this to a friend of hers, and this friend of hers said to her, yeah, you got a heter, but it's not really what you should be doing. That's not what God wants you to do. You got a heter. So she said this to me. Right. So she said this to me. So I said, so she actually came back and said to me, and I said, I wrote this article in response to this event. I said, this person does not understand Jewish law and does not understand the concept of heter. When this posek was paskening, right, he understood the true nature of who you were, your psychology, your things, and so forth and so forth. And his perception was that for you, the heter was appropriate and the right answer. Okay? In other words, your friend doesn't understand what Jewish law is really about. Doesn't understand the true depth of Jewish law. Doesn't understand that, yeah, you want to call it a heter because it's more in line with what you want. Yeah, because Jewish law understands that that also has its place, given the parameters of the law. So that's just a reflection of heter. But the fact of the matter is that the Midat Sdom situation, the reason they were so evil was because they were so principled. They saw their values in black and white as absolute values, and therefore there was no way of dealing with them. And therefore this value, which began with what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, which does have its place. Okay? Solam Atonis Yechya should not be a taker. Chayecha Kodem, your life comes first. There are values there. But when taken to an extreme, okay, and being and creating a society based upon it, that society can't even stick around to do tshuva, because they don't even have the makings to do tshuva. And that's why God destroyed Sdom. But that's something about the distinctiveness of the Torah perspective. Anyways, it just, by the way, and this obviously has something to do with halacha. The fact is people don't recognize the true depth of halacha. And the fact is that it's always dealing with the world of countervailing values and ideas and differences in facts. Okay? Okay.